We have Pam, Lisa, and Heather here with us, so if you don't mind, we'll go ahead and start. The first policy is 1620, which is the annual organizational meeting. And that basically is that they're giving the Board of Education the choice of holding the annual meeting within the first 15 days of July. And that is up to the discretion of the board. Usually we do it right around the first of July. But if the board would like to discuss when they would like to have that, then I can go ahead and start putting the dates together for next year. Then the next one is 1640, that's absentee ballots. Mostly what this one is giving the military an option to vote by absentee ballot. And then we move to 3420, non-discrimination and anti-harassment in the district.
And that's me. Okay, so this one was updated because of some various changes in the federal and state non-discrimination and anti-harassment laws, as well as revisions to the regulations that surround Title IX. They have added in a new section of the overview with a description, a list of the legally protected classes that was not in there previously. It also provided a definition for school property and school function because our policies, some pieces of it relate specifically to school events. We also added 2 offices that will handle the civil rights compliance issues. They recommended to appoint 2 to avoid any bias or conflicts, and there are 2 of one of each gender, so that way should somebody want to speak to somebody particular, they can. So that one is 3420, non-discrimination and anti-harassment in the district. And the next one is also me, Title IX and sex discrimination. So that also had some updates that were related to federal and state updates in the regulations and the laws. So for the first time, it notes that Title IX recognizes sexual harassment, including sexual assault, is unlawful discrimination. So that is added into it. There is also a new section required to designate and authorize at least one employee to coordinate the activities who's recommended as the coordinator. Again, we've identified a couple of different offices that will take care of the various aspects of Title IX should we ever have to conduct an investigation. And there's also an opportunity for an appeal or a grievance to an outcome. So we have updated it, Dr. Duffy and I. We also added in specific time frames. Most of the time frames referred to 60 days, and it was a little bit more general. But we've added in, he and I went through the policy and worked out what would be a reasonable number of days for each of the steps. So that way folks could expect information back in what we thought was a reasonable amount of time. So you aren't just submitting a complaint and then potentially waiting for months to hear something back. So I know that one is a big one. It's actually 20 pages long, but there's a lot of definitions and a lot of descriptions in the policy. But everything has been updated and all of the timelines have been updated. So those were the 2 big pieces that we had to fix. And that's according to Erie 1. Heather, did you have a...
Yeah, I was just curious what Lisa, like what your, I know you serve in this capacity at the college. I'm just curious what your reflections are on the changes in this policy.
Yeah, I'm not the Title IX coordinator here, but I'm on the hearing board of a lot of Title IX cases. I think it makes sense, like having, I don't think there's a lot of leeway with the definitions, but like you have to go with all of these things. But the only thing I would say, and I'd have to actually go back and look in terms of the timeline, is that I'm going to pull that back up again. But when I looked through it, like nothing really like stood out at me. Like I think giving people like clear, like we're working on it, you know, that where it is in the process and what's happening is beneficial to everybody.
Yeah, does that procedure and that time frame kind of fit what you guys do as well? Does it kind of mirror the same time periods? You know what I mean? How long it takes to get things done?
I mean, I have to say honestly, things take a very long time generally, but sometimes it's because we get things very late, but sometimes it's because with interviewing witnesses and working around the academic calendar where students may go home for winter break and then they come back, like it tends to be a much longer time frame. I'm less familiar with employees, right? Like, so what I'm talking about is like student related issues. Yeah. I do think like that if something went to HR because of an employee, it would go much more quickly than the way it happens with students.
Okay. Thank you.
Bob and I and Dr. Calvin recently attended an updated training because there were some changes that came through last summer, fall, end of summer. And it now requires that you have an investigator that is separate from the person who makes the determination based on the outcome of the investigation, and a third person who becomes the appeal opportunity, again, separate. So we've created some layers and we've all gone through the required training. And then we'll continue to do like an updated training probably annually as required by the law. Yeah, that one was a big one. We wanted to make sure that we went through and understood it all and read it through properly.
And next is 4211, the district organizational chart. We just want to update the chart that was on there. It had a couple names that were employed a little while ago, so we're just bringing it up to date. And then the next one, 5633. Heidi, would that one be you also?
Nancy. Pass the baton off to Nancy for a few.
Right. So this is a new policy. It's general neutral single occupancy bathrooms. It's for the signage that we have to put on single occupancy bathrooms. I can tell you that they have already been ordered and installed on each and every one of our single use bathrooms. The gender neutral signs. So they have male, female, and then another half icon, and then they also have the braille on it as well. So that is on all of our bathrooms. I think we've installed 86 to date. The only place that we have to do it is in the new facilities over in the track area or the field area. Heather, did you have a question?
Yeah, I'm so sorry. It actually, you can go through this if you want, because it actually has to do with the organizational chart. I knew I had a question on it.
If you want to go back.
Okay, that'd be great. Thanks. Before I forget.
Well, yeah. I actually also wanted to go back to one, but just because it's sort of related to this. But let's go back one, and then because mine's at the beginning.
Okay. Oh, okay. So, yeah, I hope you don't mind. I have to jump in when it's here, or else it's gone.
No problem.
So on the organizational chart, I mean, the way it reads that like Rhonda is a supervisor of the technology, and then the technology supervises the high school principal. And I'm not exactly sure that's accurate, is it?
No, I think that the way it's set, Heather, is just because of the space on the page. That is not a linear. That's the way it looks, but I don't think it's meant to be that linear and that directional.
Do you like the way it looks under Nancy's line?
Well, I'm just saying it, you know, when you read an organizational chart, it really reads like a family tree almost, right?
Like
so we sort of need to make sure that the arrows make sense, because if I don't know anything else about school district, I look here and say, oh, Patrick Wallace answers to Jamie, who answers to Rhonda, who answers to Heidi. And I think we want to maybe change the arrows so that it reflects the reality, which is I think they're all directly under you.
Yeah. So
I
I
think
think
the way the first column should, the way the first column is like Heidi.
Similar to what
I
Nancy,
like how Nancy's
yeah.
row kind of looks
Mhm.
that it's all just boop, boop, boop. So maybe we can take a look at that, definitely.
Yeah, I think that would read better, or else it doesn't really make any sense.
And that would be the same, Karen, with Director of Special Ed Services and Director of Student Services. Those should have the same kind of arrows where they're both under me, but Bob doesn't report to Lisa.
Okay, yeah, so I didn't know that, because according to this, I thought he did. So, I mean, one thing you could also do is we could make the boxes a little smaller, so you have you can along the side put the arrow down, or I mean, there's a variety of ways you can definitely illustrate that. But I definitely think so, because it is an organizational chart, the arrows need to mean direct supervision.
My comment is on the first one on 1640 about absentee ballots, or I guess the second one about absentee ballots. Just in the spirit of like gender, moving away from this like dichotomy of gender, we took away the he and she from on page 1. We took away he and she, like stopped repeating it on A through E, and then put it up before the colon. We may want to consider just making it because the voter colon, and then you get rid of gender completely.
That's a great point, Lisa. Thank you for sharing that, because we are trying to move away from specific pronouns whenever we can and just go to more of like a neutral sentence.
Great catch, Lisa.
Okay, so were there any questions on the gender neutral single occupancy bathrooms? No? The next one is record management, policy 5670. And what this says is it is saying that we're adopting the new New York government local records guidelines and retention periods. And if you remember, in October, you approved that very big document which had the records retention in it. So this is just a revision of the policy to match that document.
Nancy, does the document have the updates that came through several months ago?
Yes.
Perfect, thank you.
Policy 5681 is on school safety plans. And the change in this is that before we were required to have a student on the safety team, now it is optional. And that is the only change to this policy.
Okay, and then I think I've got the last 3 here. So the next one, 6410, which is staff use of computerized information resources. So the previous policy used to exclude the option to use now through Dr. Calvin, I think you might have a Mickey Mouse thing going on your end. You might need to. I love that aspect. So we've been able to work through a number of vendors, including Google, and the vendors have opted in to our service agreement. So because of that, Jamie has put together the list of those computerized resources, and he will manage that list and keep it updated whenever we add a new one or one falls off for whatever reason. But then staff will be informed of which types of software, cloud-based services are okay to use and share information through. So that was the big change to 6410. Okay. The next one, 6550, is about leaves of absence, which we just got a new law shared out about vaccine leaves, and that I'm sure we'll be getting another 6550 update from Erie One. But for now, the current change is because there used to be language that required us to allow employees to leave for voting purposes, but that has been updated because it does present a bit of a challenge to public entities, municipalities, and such. So there was a lot of discussion at the state level. They ended up striking some language and then adding the new language that's in J. And it really focuses on, do you have sufficient time before or after your shift? And they define it as 4 consecutive hours. So either from the opening of the polls and the beginning of the shift, or the end of your shift and the closing of the polls, which makes it a lot more convenient for us to run our operations because, you know, most of us will absolutely have enough time before or after our shift to get to the polls in a timely fashion. So that is the update to 6550.
I think there's a question maybe from Heather. I see your hand up.
I think that might be up from before.
It's old. However, I do have a question. Some of these have like extra pages in them. I'm not sure if like formatting is a big deal, but a couple of them had like, at least I'm seeing like whole extra pages.
Oh, we can put this up.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Okay.
We can put this
I'll
up.
put my hand down now.
And then our last one, sports and the athletic program. This one had 2 areas. It changed out the term civil rights compliance officer and added in Title IX coordinator. And then there was a section about the athletic process, which we kept. We had Rhonda review it, and the paragraph that's indicated on page 2 is currently our practice after the discussion that we had, I don't know, gosh, like a year or so ago, ballpark. So that 7420 it was just a small edit about the Title IX coordinator and some language in that one paragraph. And that, I think, is both the last one from me and maybe the last of our policies, Karen.
It is the last of the policies. So if I could get the board policy committee to okay for these policies to be put on the next meeting for the first reading, along with the changes to the organizational chart with the arrows. Would that be okay? Okay, great.
Yes.
Lisa, I will work with Karen to just look at that language in the absentee ballots and maybe switch it to a more neutral language, okay?
Great. Thank you. That's it for policy committee. We'll see you soon.
Thank you.
Take care, guys.